At the age of 57, I was leading an apparently idyllic existence. My name is Angela Carter, a woman whose curves remained intact despite the passage of time, bore the evidence of my age in the silver strands of my long black hair and the subtle lines on my face. My skin, a warm caramel, reflected my heritage, and my hazel eyes retained a glimmer of youth, albeit somewhat diminished by life's experiences. I was no longer the passionate young bride who had wed Paul Carter 3 decades prior. Yet I remained vibrant, elegant and dignified. Paul was a captivating man who, at 60, nevertheless retained his attractiveness. He had captivated me decades ago, tall, broad-shouldered, and possessing an unwaveringly confident smile, the type of man who could enter a room and immediately seize attention. We had navigated life together, enduring children, careers, and familial disputes. Our 3 adult children had departed, rendering our spacious home tranquil yet comfortable. Indeed, circumstances had evolved. However, I believed that love persisted despite the dulling effects of routine. Recently, I observed that our affection no longer radiated with the same intensity. The stolen kisses in the kitchen had diminished to mere pecks, and the warmth of his touch had become mechanical and somewhat detached. I endeavored not to ruminate on this, persuading myself that it was merely the passage of time affecting us. Paul's 2 younger brothers, Liam and Nathan, had recently taken up temporary residence with us. Liam, aged 35, was the more reserved of the 2, with dark, brooding eyes and a soft-spoken demeanor that inspired trust. He possessed a quiet strength and a reserved presence that rendered his smile both rare and precious. Nathan, 32, was his antithesis, constantly joking and laughing. His boyish blonde hair and mischievous green eyes radiated energy, akin to a beam of sunlight illuminating the room. They were residing with us for several months while engaged in a local project, infusing the household with a certain liveliness that I secretly relished. Their youthful exuberance elicited laughter from me in a manner I had not experienced in years. And although I would not vocalize it, I felt a subtle flutter when I caught them casting appreciative glances in my direction. They were both markedly unlike Paul, significantly younger and more lively, evoking a semblance of a lost version of myself whose existence I questioned. However, underneath the ostensibly flawless exterior, a tempest was brewing, one that would dismantle all my preconceived notions. On the day my life began to unravel, it commenced like any other. I awoke early, as per usual, to prepare breakfast. Paul occupied the kitchen, sipping his coffee and reading the newspaper, while Liam and Nathan entered. Still drowsy, Nathan flashed a grin and offered his customary playful compliment regarding my cooking, while Liam expressed his gratitude as he took a seat. I had news to convey that morning. Paul, I informed you that my office has requested my representation at an out-of-town conference for 2 days, necessitating my departure this afternoon. Paul appeared taken aback. Oh, where is the conference in Riverside? I responded that it was nothing significant, but they believed I was the most suitable candidate. He nodded and smiled, saying, "Of course, dear, go impress them." He leaned in and kissed my cheek, a gesture that felt more routine than sincere. I then went to Liam and Nathan. Nathan chuckled, expressing his hope that the 2 of you would not cause Paul much difficulty in my absence. No assurances, Liam. He smiled weakly, although his gaze remained on me longer than usual, as if he wished to convey something but reconsidered. By 2 p.m. I was prepared and set. Paul accompanied me to the vehicle, bestowed a brief farewell kiss, and waved as I departed for the airport. I was exhilarated by both the journey and the respite from the tedium of home. A portion of me anticipated the prospect of a novel environment, engaging with new individuals, and breaking free from the established routine I had adhered to over the years. However, destiny had alternative intentions. As I stood at the airport, with my suitcase beside me, I experienced an unusual blend of anticipation and trepidation as the terminal teemed with travelers. The ambient noise of conversation and rolling suitcases permeating the atmosphere. I glanced at my phone to check the time, contemplating the duration of my wait to board, when my phone vibrated in my hand. It was my boss, and my heart sank upon seeing his name. "The conference has been cancelled," he stated, without preamble, that there were some logistical issues with the venue. "I am truly sorry, Angela. I realize this is last minute," he said. I managed a polite response before hanging up. My smile quickly dissipated. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. I was reluctant to return home so soon after leaving, as I had anticipated a change of scenery. However, there was no alternative. I begrudgingly boarded a taxi back to the house, the ride affording me excessive time for contemplation. I replayed Paul's parting kiss in my mind, noting its lack of passion and the way his gaze seemed to drift past me. Was I imagining things, or had he indeed been distant? By the time I arrived home, I had been preoccupied with my thoughts for longer than I wished to acknowledge. An unsettling sensation had taken residence in my chest. As the taxi approached the driveway, I observed that Liam and Nathan's vehicle was absent, which was not atypical, as they frequently engaged in errands or social outings during the evenings. I unlocked the front door and entered. The home was unsettlingly silent, prompting me to place my luggage down and close the door. The quietness was neither soothing nor familiar, it felt disconcerting. Paul's absence was peculiar. There was no greeting, absence of his voice, no ambient noise from the television, nor the typical clatter of his laptop keys. I yelled for Paul, but the house absorbed my voice. There was no response. I placed my luggage down and shut the door. Behind me, the sound of the lock clicking into place resonated oddly in the vacant space. I informed him that he was likely resting as well. He cultivated the habit post-retirement, thinking it a luxury he had earned after years of diligent labor, which elicited a wry chuckle from me. I contemplated as I ascended the stairs, perceiving it as yet another method of evading reality. Comparable to the guy himself, I ascended gradually, each step emitting a creak, faintly beneath my weight. My lips curved into a faint, teasing smile. I planned to poke fun at him for his laziness for sneaking off for another midday nap. He hated when I called him out for it, always grumbling about a man needing his rest. I found his irritation endearing in a way, though it often masked a deeper frustration between us. But as I neared the top of the stairs, that teasing thought of my heart stopped when I heard it, a sound so soft and unmistakable. It froze me in place of a whisper. The sound was faint, but it came from our bedroom. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. It was an intimate murmur too tender to be spoken to oneself. My pulse quickened, my palms growing clammy as my mind raced through possibilities. I wanted to believe I was overreacting, that I was imagining things. But my feet moved of their own accord. Carrying me forward, I approached the door, which was slightly ajar enough to let a sliver of light streams into the dim hallway. My heart pounded in my chest as I pushed it open just enough to see inside, and then I saw them. The sight hit me like a physical blow that kind of makes you. Paul wasn't gasping for air. He was alone with Jasmine, the 22-year-old daughter of our neighbor, the same girl who had sold lemonade on the street throughout her childhood, whom I had observed during my upbringing. She was there with my husband on our conjugal bed. My knees felt weak as I clutched the doorframe for stability. My hands quivered. Yet I remained still, ensnared in the nightmare unfolding in front of me. Paul didn't notice me at first. He was too engrossed, too wrapped up in his hands moving across her bare back, his lips brushing her neck. He whispered something I couldn't hear, his voice low and intimate in a way that used to belong to me. The bile rose in my throat, burning with the bitterness of betrayal. How long had this been going on? What is the quantity? Countless times I had kissed him, embraced him, and placed my trust in him while this transpired unbeknownst to me. My mind raced with a multitude of unanswered questions, each more devastating than the last. Then Jasmine beheld me. Her eyes widened in horror. Her face drained of color as she forcefully pushed Paul away from Angela. Gasping as she spoke, trembling, Paul turned at the sound of my name, his expression transitioning from confusion to panic. Angela, he stammered, his voice laden with desperation. This isn't Dash. I did not allow him to complete his sentence. My feet moved instinctively, outpacing my thoughts. I fled from the room and down the stairs, my vision obscured by tears and rage. Angela awaited me, Paul pursued, his heavy footsteps reverberating on the floor as I entered the living room. My chest heaved, my breath ragged as I attempted to comprehend what I had just witnessed. My hands trembled as I clenched them into fists, resisting the impulse to scream. Paul approached, his face ashen, embodying guilt and shame. Angela, he uttered. It meant nothing, his voice imploring. He extended his hand toward me, but I recoiled, raising my hand to halt him. Do not contact me, I have expressed my opinion. Trembling with rage, he declared it a mistake, his words spilling forth in haste. A moment of weakness. It's you I love. Angela, please just listen to me. The term, error, reverberated in my thoughts like a harsh echo. Was it truly a mistake every time he clandestinely departed? Being with her was a mistake. He deceived me, kissed me, and assisted me while fully aware of his actions behind my back. The burden of his treachery was overwhelming, rendering my knees weak, yet I resolved not to falter before him. Without uttering a word, I turned and departed, my eyesight blurred as I confined myself in the guest bedroom. The moment the door clicked shut, tears cascaded down my face. Hot and bitter tears streamed down my cheeks as I sank into the bed, clutching the pillow to my breast to muffle the screams that convulsed my body. Vivid and cruel pictures of Paul and Jasmine rushed through my mind, each more awful than the previous. I wept until my throat ached and my chest felt hollow and empty. How could he do this to me after 30 years of marriage? After all we had endured together, how could he betray me for a girl young enough to be his daughter? I wept until I was devoid of tears, feeling hollow and numb. In that emptiness, a singular thought took root. burning like fire in the pit of my stomach. I would not allow him to evade the consequences of his actions. Over the next few days, I feigned forgiveness, but internally, I was a tempest of anger, humiliation, and pain. Each moment served as a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had obliterated the life I believed I possessed. I scarcely ate, barely touching the meals I had meticulously prepared to maintain appearances. Sleep eluded me, whenever I closed my eyes. The image of Paul with Jasmine incessantly replayed in my thoughts. Each glance at Paul evoked visceral turmoil within me, akin to a haunting reel of infidelity. His efforts to feign normalcy, joking, touching, pretending that our lives had not been irrevocably shattered, only intensified my anger. All I perceived in him was the duplicitous individual who had dismantled my trust. It was during one of these interminable, sleepless nights that a perilous, intoxicating thought infiltrated my mind. If Paul could so effortlessly betray me, why should I continue to uphold my loyalty to him? The question lingered, saturating the room with its gravity, followed by a notion that quickened my pulse and ignited my thinking with sinister energy: revenge. Indeed, revenge, the word itself sent a thrill me, a spark that began to burn away the helplessness I'd felt since discovering his betrayal. The fire inside me consumed the pain, replacing it with something dark and primal. If he could betray me without a second thought, then I would have my own way of making him pay. But how could it cut Paul deeply? Enough to make him feel what I felt, and then my mind drifted to Liam and Nathan. Liam and Nathan had both been staying in our home for weeks now, their youthful energy filling the house with a liveliness I hadn't realized I'd missed at 32 and 35. They were vibrant, full of life and a way Paul hadn't been in years. Liam was the quiet one with dark, intense eyes that always seemed to be studying me. There was a calmness to him, a quiet strength that made him magnetic without him even trying. Nathan, on the other hand, was all charm and boyish mischief, his green eyes sparkling with humor and warmth. He had a way of making me laugh that felt almost foreign after years of Paul's growing distance. They admired me, I could tell, in the way their eyes lingered just a second too long when I entered a room, the way their conversations with me carried a weight of respect and intrigue. I was older, yes, but I still had a presence, and in their company I felt seen. If I was going to take my revenge, why not take it to the next level? Why not hurt Paul where it would cut him the deepest by turning to the two people he would least expect? The idea took root, growing stronger with each passing day, fueled by my heartbreak and the burning desire to take back control of my life. I would teach Paul a lesson he would never forget. The days after catching Paul with Jasmine passed in a haze. I went through the motions of life, pretending to forget and pretending to heal. But inside I was simmering with the thrill of my plan. Every smile and every kiss goodbye before Paul left for work only fed the fire within me. One evening after Paul had left with his friends, I stood in front of the mirror in my room, appraising myself critically. I chose a soft red satin dress from the back of my closet. It hugged my curves in all the right places, the neckline dipping just low enough to drop attention without being vulgar. My hair streaked with silver fell in loose waves over my shoulders, and the touch of lipstick highlighted the fullness of my lips. I wasn't the insecure, heartbroken woman I had been just days ago. Tonight, I was a queen, woman scorned and ready to reclaim her power. Downstairs, Liam and Nathan were lounging on the couch with a bowl of popcorn between them as they watched some action movie. Their laughter echoed through the house, warm and carefree. The sound of my heels clicking against the hardwood floor silenced them. I descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate, drawing their attention. They both turned to look at me, their eyes widening as they took in my appearance. "Do you like what you see?" I asked, standing at the bottom of the stairs, my hands resting confidently on my hips. Liam coughed, his face turning a shade of crimson as he averted his eyes. Nathan, on the other hand, grinned, his green eyes sparkling with mischief. "Wow, Angela," he said, his voice playful. "You look incredible." "It's all for you," I replied, letting my lips curl into a seductive smile. "For both of you." Their confusion was evident, but neither of them looked away. I walked toward them, slowly, my hips swaying with each step. "Let's explore something new," I said softly, my voice dripping with suggestions. "Just the three of us." Nathan's grin faltered. "Are you serious?" he asked. His tone was half joking, half incredulous. Liam shifted uncomfortably, but I saw the flicker of desire in his dark eyes. "Angela," he began, his voice low, "this isn't." I silenced him with a finger pressed to his lips. "Don't think, Liam," I whispered. "Just feel." Like I sat down between them on the couch, close enough to feel their warmth. My heart raced, but I kept my movements steady. My smile teasing. Nathan's hand brushed against mine, hesitant at first, but when I didn't pull away, he became bolder. "You're stunning," he murmured, his voice filled with admiration. Liam still looked torn in his hands, gripping the couch cushion as though it might anchor him. "And this isn't right," he said again, but his voice lacked conviction. I turned to him, cupping his face gently. "Does it feel wrong?" I asked, searching his eyes. "Because it doesn't seem to me." There was a moment of silence, the air thick with tension. Then almost in unison, they nodded. I smiled, feeling a rush of power unlike anything I'd experienced before. This was my chance to take back control, to reclaim some semblance of dignity after what Richard had done. Liam and Nathan's eyes flipped between me and each other. Their expressions were a mixture of surprise and desire. "You don't have to hold back," I whispered, my voice low and husky. "Not with me." I reached out, running my fingers along the edge of Liam's jaw, feeling the stubble beneath my touch. "Isn't dangerous." I murmured, my gaze flickering between the two brothers. "But sometimes danger feels so good." Nathan moved closer, his hand brushing against mine before resting on my shoulder. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Because I need this," I thought. "Because I need to feel alive again." Nathan was the first to move his strong arms around me and pull me close. His lips found mine in a searing kiss. His tongue explored my mouth with a hunger that sent shivers down my spine. Tingled. And Liam hesitated for a moment, watching us intently before finally joining in. His hands were hesitant at first, gently tracing lines at the back of my neck. But soon enough he grew bolder, his touch becoming more insistent. I was caught between them, their touches igniting a fire in me I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time I felt desired. I felt worshipped. The air in the room grew more thick with tension. The lines between right and wrong blurred until they disappeared altogether. What began as innocent kisses deepened, their hands exploring with a hunger that matched my own. The sensation was overwhelming yet thrilling. This was wrong, deeply, undeniably wrong, but in that moment it felt so right. Time seemed to stand still. There was no guilt, no second guessing, only the heat of the moment and the thrill of taking back control. "You're incredible," Liam murmured against my neck, his breath hot against my skin. "Yes," Nathan agreed, his voice shaky but filled with emotion so beautiful. Their hands explore me with reverence as if I was something precious, something they'd longed for without even realizing it. I responded in kind, guiding them, urging them on. I felt like I was being torn apart and put back together all at once. Their lips explored every inch of me. Nathan's kisses were hot and demanding, while Liam's were softer, almost reverent, as if he were memorizing every detail of my mouth. The sensations were overwhelming my body, responding in ways I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. It was as if they were awakening something long buried within me, something wild and untamed. Nathan broke away from the kiss, his eyes searching mine. "I've never felt like this before," he confessed, his voice trembling with honesty. I cued his cheek with my thumb, brushing against the skin. "Neither have I," admitted, my own voice filled with vulnerability. Liam grabbed my wrist, pulling me back into his embrace. "Then let us show you," he said, his voice dripping with promise. And they did. Their kisses became more intense, more fervent, as if they were trying to pour every ounce of their desire into me. The room was charged with an electric tension in the air, thick with unspoken desires and lingering touches. I stood before Liam and Nathan, my heart pounding in my chest as their eyes, one hazel, one brown, locked onto mine. The world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the three of us in this moment. When we finally pulled apart, we sat in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over us. Nathan broke it with a nervous laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well," he said, his tone light, "that was unexpected." Liam looked at me, his dark eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and longing. "Angela," he said softly, "what does this mean?" "It means," I replied, to my voice steady, "that things are about to change." They didn't press for answers and I didn't offer any. But in that moment I knew there was no going back. What started as a single impulsive act quickly became a secret affair. Liam and Nathan couldn't seem to resist me, and I couldn't get enough of the way they made me feel desired, powerful, and alive. We became careful, ensuring Paul remained oblivious. When Paul was asleep, I would slip out of bed and find one or sometimes both of them waiting for me in the guest room with his brother's touches lingering. Our eyes filled with unspoken promises at night. When Paul was asleep, I would slip out of bed and find one or sometimes both of them waiting for me in the guest room. It was dangerous and reckless, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't the woman waiting in the shadows, overlooked and undervalued. I was the center of the object of their desire, and I reveled in it.